Welcome to Hardly, where each book is distilled into a chronological story, offering you a special journey in just minutes. Today, we study together William Hunt Gross's book, The King and I, 46 Years of Investment Outlooks, Musings, and Commonsensical Thoughts. From Bond King Bill Gross, in which we probe into how seemingly ordinary yet bold investment strategies shaped the rise of one of the most powerful bond markets in modern financial history. William Hunt Gross is the founder, managing director, and CEO of Pacific Investment Management Company, which manages over $90 billion. Don't go away. Hardly the editor will be right back with the story. The story of Bill Gross and PIMCO starts back in 1978, a time when bond investing wasn't the glamorous game it later became. Gross, a former Navy man turned bond manager, saw something in the bond market that others didn't: potential. It wasn't about playing the safe, predictable route of government securities. Instead, Gross and his team at PIMCO had a vision to turn bonds into something dynamic, something that could redefine how money was managed. Alongside him were some key players like Mohammed El-Arian, who would later become co-chief investment officer. Together, they steered PIMCO from being a small West Coast operation to managing trillions by 2014. Gross's early investment strategies at PIMCO were shaped by his ability to foresee economic trends others missed. Take 1981, for instance. When interest rates were soaring, Gross compared it to a visit to the dentist, painful but necessary. Today's economy and financial markets are making an extended visit to the dentist's office, he wrote. His strategy? Seize opportunities where others saw risks. He built PIMCO on the foundation that bonds could be more than safe havens. They could be growth engines if managed correctly. One of the turning points came in the early 2000s, when PIMCO predicted the housing market bubble before many others. Gross, having sensed that leverage in the housing sector was reaching dangerous levels, positioned PIMCO's portfolios accordingly. When the Great Recession hit in 2007 to 2008, PIMCO was ready, navigating the crisis better than most. The entire market will wither on the investment vine, Gross wrote earlier in the decade, signaling his belief that a reckoning was coming. This foresight helped PIMCO not just survive, but thrive during one of the most chaotic financial periods in history. PIMCO's rise wasn't just about financial acumen, though. It was also about Gross's ability to connect with his investors through his monthly investment outlooks, blending market analysis with personal reflections. He knew how to turn complex financial ideas into stories, making them digestible for the average investor. This connection built trust and played a significant role in growing PIMCO's influence. By 2014, after 36 years, Gross's departure from PIMCO marked the end of an era. Yet, the foundation he laid would continue to influence the bond market long after his exit. His legacy at PIMCO was cemented, not just in numbers, but in how he changed the very way people thought about bonds. As Gross left PIMCO, he entered a new chapter. The years at Janus were different, but no less significant. They were about adapting to new surroundings, but still, the essence of the Bond King remained. When Bill Gross left PIMCO in 2014, the transition wasn't just about changing offices. It was about shifting from a corporate giant to something more intimate. At Janus Capital, Gross traded in the pressure of managing trillions for a smaller, more nimble team. It was a stark contrast, and this new environment allowed him to reconnect with his roots as an investor. He was no longer the captain of a massive ship like PIMCO, but a man focused on a smaller portfolio with different challenges. Still, Gross was Gross, and the markets were watching closely to see what the Bond King would do next. At Janus, Gross had to navigate a new era of low interest rates and unpredictable market forces. In his earlier days, he made big calls during times of high inflation, but now the game had changed. Gross was working in a post-crisis world where quantitative easing and central bank policies drove market behavior in ways that defied traditional economics. "We are navigating an increasingly treacherous course," Gross wrote in 2015, referring to the global economic shifts that made predicting market moves more complex than ever before. One memorable episode during his time at Janus occurred in 2016, a year of political and economic surprises, from Brexit to the US presidential election. These events shook global markets, but Gross's approach remained steady. He warned investors about the volatility that came with political instability, even as others were overly optimistic. His focus on macroeconomic trends and their ripple effects through the bond market continued to guide his investment philosophy. But with Janus, Gross could afford to take more targeted risks. He wasn't just managing wealth. He was exploring new strategies in a smaller sandbox, while still reminding the market of the importance of discipline. As Gross entered his late 70s, his investment outlook reflected a man who had seen the highs and lows of finance. His perspectives at Janus were those of a veteran. "It's not about winning every battle," he remarked, "but surviving to fight another day." Gross was no longer at the helm of an industry leader, but his voice still carried weight. The market listened because Gross had been through nearly everything. By 2019, his time at Janus came to a close, and Gross stepped back from active management. But this wasn't the end. It was the start of a reflective period where Gross would look back on his legacy, the lessons learned, and the future of investing. The next phase wasn't about managing portfolios, but about sharing wisdom gained from a lifetime in the markets. As Gross moved on, his reflections began to offer the final chapters of his career. By 2019, Bill Gross had stepped away from active portfolio management, but his influence on the financial world was far from over. This phase of his life wasn't about trading or market forecasts. It was about reflection. Gross now had the time to look back on his career, offering insights that spanned decades of experience in a constantly shifting market. He no longer needed to prove himself in the bond market. Instead, his focus turned to sharing what he had learned about the nature of economies, investments, and human behavior. One of the key themes of his reflections was the unpredictability of the global economy. After decades of navigating interest rate cycles, recessions, and bull markets, Gross knew better than most that no market trend lasts forever. In 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic shook the world, Gross observed, "The future can be charted only in probabilities, never certainties." He warned that investors who depended too heavily on past strategies might find themselves unprepared for the unexpected. His experience navigating the financial crises of 2008 had taught him that black swan events, like a pandemic, would challenge the most prepared investors. Throughout these years, Gross was also candid about the emotional and personal toll of a life spent in high-stakes finance. He had long been known for his intense focus, but now he spoke openly about the need to balance work with life. Reflecting on his earlier years, Gross admitted that he had often been more consumed by markets than personal relationships. His reflections were less about specific bond strategies and more about the importance of perspective. He spoke not just to fellow investors, but to anyone listening. The markets would always be there, but time, once gone, never returns. Yet even as Gross looked back, he couldn't help but look forward. He remained engaged with the state of the financial world, particularly in 2021, when he offered sharp criticism of the speculative frenzy around stocks like GameStop. Gross saw these moments as a sign of the times, where traditional investing had been replaced by a form of gambling. "It's all noise," he said, reminding investors to stay grounded in fundamentals, no matter the distractions. His message was clear. The future of investing would need a return to basics, a rejection of hype in favor of sound strategy. Gross's final insights were those of a man who had seen it all, but knew that the game wasn't over. The markets, he knew, would continue to evolve, just as they had during his career. The key to survival, in his view, was adaptability and the ability to keep learning. To thrive in the unpredictable world of finance, it takes foresight, resilience, and the ability to adapt quickly when the market shifts. This book illustrates how one man navigated crises, like the 1994 interest rate shock, by recalibrating strategies rather than reacting in panic. Turning market chaos into opportunity means not just predicting trends, but recognizing when to shift course. His journey emphasizes the importance of staying grounded in fundamentals, yet remaining flexible enough to adjust to an ever-evolving financial landscape. As the editor of Hardly, through studying these stories, we realize that the future isn't just about making the right decisions. It's about having the humility to know when the world is changing around you. In the end, Bill Gross's journey wasn't just about mastering bonds. It was about seeing the financial world differently. His sharp instincts helped him thrive during times of market turmoil, but what truly set him apart was his ability to foresee change and adapt. One story from 1994 stands out vividly. The Federal Reserve unexpectedly raised interest rates, sending shockwaves through the bond market. Gross, who had been heavily invested in bonds, saw his positions falter. However, rather than panic, he quickly pivoted, adjusting PIMCO's strategies to ride out the storm. He later reflected, "We didn't just react to the market, we recalibrated our approach." The story of adaptability and resilience serves as a perfect illustration of Gross's career-long mantra. To survive, you must evolve with the market, not against it. Gross's legacy is built on moments like these, seizing opportunities, learning from failures, and always moving forward. His reflections in his later years carry this same message. The financial world is ever-changing, and no single strategy will work forever. The key takeaway for us, as readers and investors, is to remain adaptable, stay informed, and understand that even the best-laid plans can, and will, be disrupted. As we reflect on Gross's journey, we circle back to the key insight. Successful investing is not just about predicting trends, but knowing when it's time to change course.